Have you ever been gaming or working online classes and your internet service constantly gets interrupted? First Nations Fiber is about to ensure that just won't happen again. Get ready for high speed at a new level. Click on fnfiber.com and sign up today. First Nations Fiber, empowering people through connectivity.
And welcome to Kahnawake Tourism's episode of Kwakaratonni. We are sharing our stories. Today we are joined by an amazing collaborator in the community and chef from Screaming Chef Cuisine, Ryland Diom. So we're really happy to have you in the studio today, and we want to give you the opportunity just to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, Segu, everybody. My name is Ryland Diom. I'm a local chef, entrepreneur. I've been serving the community now for 7 years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I've had the opportunity to taste your food from a work perspective and from a community member's perspective, and you never disappoint.
Happy to hear that.
Yeah, and my kids love it. How did you start with the whole Screaming Chef venture?
So Screaming Chef started in 2019, the summer of 2019. It started off as it was never supposed to be something that I did for a long time. It was never supposed to become a restaurant. It was just me trying to find a creative outlet and to do something that I enjoyed as a job. I just took a big chance with doing it. So we started the summer of 2019. The pandemic hit the following summer, which, at first kind of felt like it was, squashing whatever little idea I had going on at the time. But with the advent of curbside pickup and e-transfer, tap, all that, I was still able to do my weekly service, which was usually Fridays, I believe, and Fridays after 4. So it was just send me your e-transfer and I'll put your bag of food on the back porch. Awesome. Come and grab your food and get out of here. So again, I was very, very fortunate as somebody who was very new to the food industry to actually be given a boost by the pandemic, because obviously many restaurants were hit hard by it, closed, never reopened. So it was one silver lining of the pandemic, you could say.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been, it's been snowballing ever since, getting more momentum, more support from the community, more support from outside the community. And it was something I started to enjoy more and more as I was doing, coming up with ideas, weekly ideas. What am I going to do this week? What am I going to do next week? And some were hit or miss. Sometimes maybe I stretched a little too far, and some people were like, I'm not going to try that. But but yeah, so the brand's been around since 2019, but the restaurant has been open since February 2024. So we recently hit the 2-year mark, which is
congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a hard road for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. It's a tough business.
It's definitely something that you can't be. It's not for the faint of heart.
No,
you have to be committed to it.
In all honesty, it's I think you got to be a little bit of a masochist, to be honest. you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to be ready to work hard for maybe sometimes little pay. You know what I mean? So to be honest, sometimes I was doing 40-hour weeks and making virtually no money. Making enough money to keep the business going, to make payroll, to buy produce for the next day, all that. But what I come away with sometimes is rough. And it's I always compare it to the restaurant being fishing, right? Every day it's when I'm getting up to go to work, I'm all right, let me get my fishing rod and let's see what we get. You know what I mean? Hopefully we get a big one. Hopefully we get a bunch. And the reality is, those days do happen. Those weeks happen, but the opposite happens as well. Sometimes you go out there and there's nothing, you know what I mean? And it's like rolling the dice every day, and after the restaurant's been around for 2 years, I was some point we're going to get to some sort of consistency, and I'll be able to know, you know what I mean? That's completely false. That never happened. There, right up until, last week, it was you don't know what day is going to be busy. It's Fridays are busy, right? Thursdays, Fridays, those should be busy. Sometimes they're not. You know what I mean? Sometimes Tuesday is the busiest day of the week. And it's you're getting so many orders, you're drowning, and you're oh my God, we need to bring in extra help. We need an extra driver. And then it's like, and then you start to plan for that. You're like, okay, let's plan, what's going to happen. Like, we need to be more prepared for these busy days like this. And then, you don't get a busy day for 3 weeks. You know? So it's challenging in that sense. And I mean, obviously right now, everybody knows food prices, right? Food prices. Right. So it's like, restaurants, we can still do it, right? Mm-hmm. But the margin of profit, is already small for restaurants, right? But now it's even smaller. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I mean, you gotta make something. You know what I mean? So I mean, I could talk a lot about that, but I mean, tough, yes, but the reason I've stuck with it is not for the money, that's for sure, but it's for the relationships I've built through it. That's whether it's with you guys at tourism, Kahnawake Tourism, whether it's Montérégie Tourism, whether it's Indigenous Tourism Quebec. Whether it's just the average person that's coming through the door every day, you know what I mean? Like, I've made so many friends since I've opened that, and that was something I never expected. You going into it, I was like, okay, it's a job. I need to make money. I need to support my family and myself, right? But I've become, in these last 2 years since the restaurant, well, no, let's say the whole thing, 7 years, like, I've become rich and wealthy in friendships. That's awesome. And I never thought that I was going to feel so in place doing this. And I never thought that, I didn't think it would be as rewarding as it was. And it's like, now suddenly I'm at the Bell Center, you know what I mean? Just like snap your fingers, right? And it's like, but it does come from consistency and hard work and, like I said, working those 40-hour weeks for nothing. You know what I mean? But again, I say nothing, but is it really nothing? Like I said, because I'm feeding the community. You know what I mean? And it's like we're providing the community with something that's essential that, everybody has to eat, right? Everybody has to eat. So that being said, pricing can affect things. Not everyone's got the money to order out all the time. It's just been an extremely rewarding experience overall. And, taking some time off now until the summer to reopen, and I can't wait. I can't wait. You know what I mean?
You have a lot of cheerleaders in your corner.
I need that. Someone like me really needs that, because like I'm the type of person, like I have low self-esteem. Like I always had. So it's hard for me to like do something, and to be like proud of it. You know what I mean? Like I struggle with that. I'm working on that though. But it makes it easier, I find, when other people show that they're proud of you. And I get choked up about it. You know what I mean? When it happens, I'm like, excuse me, like I get emotional about it, because it's like, I don't know if people realize how much it means. Like, and they're like, just a little comment on Facebook, like, oh, we had your food last night and it was so good. Or, like the ultimate compliment you could give to any chef is like saying it's the best, even if it's not. You just say, those are the best wings I ever had. That was the best strawberry juice I ever had. It's like, I hold on to those things, you know what I mean? Like, just the way I can sometimes hold on to like negative thoughts, maybe a little too much. It's like, I'm striving to like hold on to these positive things, you know what I mean? So over the years, I've gotten better at that. And, again, it's these relationships I've formed. It's feeling like a real citizen, a real Kwakaratonni. These are all the things that make it worthwhile. You know what I mean? And, at the same time, it's like, it's a slow process. And like having the restaurant open is one thing, but, I do so many other things with food. It's like, I've got catering. We have private events with people inside of town, outside of town. There's like so many avenues to do this food stuff. You know what I mean? But the restaurant is definitely the hardest one. You know what I mean? Like the everyday, being able to pay your employees a fair wage and everything like that. It's an interesting ride for sure.
Well, I worked in the restaurant industry for quite a while, on and off, and that's one thing I always bring back to people, is that you don't understand how hard it is for the owners of these restaurants to take care of their employees at the same time as making a living. And having a big menu can be very detrimental, because you have to make sure you have that in stock and not wasting. So the way that you've done it, I've always been impressed that you keep a very smaller menu, and then you keep things fresh.
Yeah.
And talking about you doing events, I always think back to you doing IITC last year and your Three Sisters salad. I went back for that multiple times at that station. Yeah. So
it's funny. I was just thinking about that last night, that event, and I'm remembering that was the dish I'd put out, and people loved it as a vegan or vegetarian option as well. You know what I mean? So yeah, well, I appreciate that, and we definitely, we do have a small menu, but like the way we do it is like, every item on there is good. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and we change a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like if we put something on the menu and it's not selling, I get rid of it. You know what I mean? Like even if one person got it and it was like their favorite thing, it's just like, it has to sell. You know what I mean? So
I think your shrimp cocktail was my my favorite.
We had that briefly.
Yeah. I got it twice and I killed it.
Yeah. My mom was a big fan of that one too.
Yeah.
I think she was the reason I actually put that on there.
Nice.
Yeah. And I mean, I've always loved shrimp, and it was because she gave me a shrimp cocktail when I was, whatever age as a kid. And I just remember eating shrimp cocktail, and shrimp is always close to my heart. That's why it's always on the menu.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that white corn shrimp, I push that on everybody. I'm like, if you're going to try one thing.
We just served it at the Bell Center too. You know what I mean?
Amazing.
So it's like, it's not on the menu right now, but we can announce it here. It's coming back in June when we reopen.
So you definitely got to make your way there and try that out, because it blows out a lot of the shrimp that you can get at these fancy restaurants in Montreal. And having that connection with the white corn also is so important to showcase that.
Absolutely.
How do you feel like your Indigenous background and culture show up in your food that you offer in your restaurant?
Well, I think what's so great about this journey is like let me back up. I started like my own personal healing journey in 2017. Mm-hmm. I turned my life around. I've been putting in the work ever since. And the work is not done. Not even close to being done. So this has been like a journey of me discovering who I am as a Ungwe person. And as I've healed. As I was healing, this business came into the plan, you know what I mean? Because I was being more focused on the future and more focused on a career and things like that. So I've learned so much about myself during this journey because, once I decided to open the restaurant 2 years ago, I was like, I want it to be an Indigenous restaurant, you know what I mean? And I asked a few people around me, I was like, to you, what's Mohawk food to you? And I asked myself, what's Mohawk food, and I didn't really know.
No.
And the people around me didn't know, my own family, no one knew, so I'm not like one of these people that grew up being raised in traditional culture and, in traditional food. I did, I've always known my culture.
Yeah.
My mother taught me since I was young. We went to the Longhouse, clan, the people. And again, that's why I love being in a business where I serve the people. But learned so much about the culture just in my own research, right? And it's like, I learned so much besides just the food. I'm looking in books, I'm looking in people, I'm looking online wherever I can find information. And it's like, I've just learned so much about myself at the same time. And it's like, it's brought me closer to being and being a citizen and like being and recognizing what does that mean, like what is being a Mohawk citizen today, you know what I mean? And for me, it's like, it's really about community, right? It's not about individualism. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about everybody. You know what I mean? And the more you think that way, the better it is for everybody.
Exactly.
And the more rewarding it is, you know what I mean? It's like, again, like, there's no reward for just me for going to do something, like going to the Bell Center, having the Bell Center job. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's good for me, like a little pat on the back, absolutely. But again, it's like I'm proud of us as a people that we have representation there. And it just so happens to be me. But if it was somebody else, I would be just as happy, you know what I mean? So, and the whole thing is like, there's not many people here in Kahnawake that are focused on the food. It's a lot of language, which is great because I believe that language is of utmost importance. Language, ceremonies, dancing, and even online, it's like you're seeing it all across quote unquote Indian country.
It's in a revival.
It's blowing up, you know what I mean? But And there is food, but it's few and far in between, you know what I mean? And it's like, I realized that Kahnawake needed that, you know what I mean? So when I made that decision to open the brick and mortar restaurant 2024, I was like, let's do Mohawk food. And I just dove in, you know what I mean? And like when we first opened, you know, we didn't have chicken or beef on the menu, but the reality is, you know, as a business owner and as a food owner, you know, most people want chicken and beef, you know? So, you know, we had like deer, moose, bison, things like that. And I had to quickly evolve and pivot, you know, like we took things off, we added things, and like the way we're at now, it's like, it's more, I guess you could say, like, you know, it's not traditional, it's not pre-colonial food that we serve on the menu day to day, but any way I can use indigenous ingredients to
infuse,
quote unquote, indigenize things, I do, you know, and I'm learning as I'm going too, you know what I mean? So I still have so much to learn, which I love, you know, which I love about the food world. There's always more to learn about food, and like in every lane, you know what I mean? And if anything, you know, it's just a little bit harder with this because, you know, when you go to the bookstore, right, and you go to the cooking section, there's no indigenous section. There's no Ungwe section. There's nothing like that. The closest thing you get is Mexican, right? And I can't remember, I just picked up a book not too long ago, and I can't remember what section it was in the food, but it was like laughable. And it was a Native American cooking book, you know what I mean? And it's like, you could just tell the people when they get it, they're like, where do I even put this? You know what I mean? What section does this go? Like, I don't even know what it is, you know? So we have so much to show and so much to showcase as what our Mohawk ingredients, what our Ungwehunwe ingredients, what our Turtle Island ingredients, you know, and what are, you know, North, Central, and South ingredients. And there's just so much to learn, which I love.
One spice that I've always been surprised that we don't use more is shumak. I love that flavor, but I've only tried it in Middle Eastern cooking. So when I found out that it was shumak that I have growing in my yard, I was like, how come I've never experienced this before in my own community? But that's our history, right? Is that people don't understand that not only were we disconnected from language, not only were we disconnected from culture, but we were disconnected from food from the get-go. And food.
Well, look at what all, you know, I mean, like the old timers, like the food. When I was doing my research about what's Mohawk food, you know what I mean? Everyone's like chicken and dumplings, meat pie, you know, and those. While we may have adopted those things and they're becoming part of our culture, they weren't part of our culture. You know what I mean? Like we weren't using flour. You know what I mean? And
well, it's the same thing when you think about Italian food. Tomatoes came from North America.
Absolutely. Let's not forget.
So they didn't have that, but it's been something that's been adopted through the years.
Absolutely. You know, something that I see a lot that almost, you know, upsets me is like, where are the tomatoes from? You know what I mean? Well, they should be from Italy, right? And I'm not saying that Italy can't grow great tomatoes, right? And we talk about Dubai chocolate, Swiss chocolate, you know. These things are from North America. You don't want Swiss chocolate. You want South American chocolate, you know. You want South American pineapple. You want, you know what I mean? These, not Hawaiian pineapple, you know, because pineapple's not indigenous to Hawaii. Again, it was like I realized there was like this huge gap, you know what I mean, in Kahnawake of this, you know what I mean? So it needed to be filled, you know what I mean? And I, you know, of course, going into it too, I was unsure. Again, you know, like I said, I struggle with like low self-esteem. And so I was like, maybe I'm not Mohawk enough to do this, right? Which a lot of us struggle with, right? Because we know why, right? Because of intergenerational trauma, because it's been beaten out of our people so viciously that generations born after feel it. That's how brutal it is. So it's important to reclaim everything that's ours, right?
Exactly.
And you hear a lot about Canadian cuisine, you hear a lot about American cuisine, you know, but that's really indigenous cuisine, right? So they're saying, oh, we're using, you know, products from the land here, you know what I mean? And we're using a little bit of the influence of the products from Europe, you know, on the other side of the world. You're like, well, is that not what we're doing? You know what I mean? As indigenous chefs, right? So teaching that to a lot of people, you know, like they'll ask us, what is Mohawk food? I don't know what it is, you know, people on the outside. And it's like, you know, I say like corn, beans, and squash usually as a little introduction, you know, and they know what corn, beans, and squash is, but they don't really, it's like, how is that indigenous? You know what I mean? So So not only do I have to educate myself and educate the staff and educate, our customers, but we need to, like, I'm an educator, on
the world.
Anyone that I can teach, like even doing this podcast and the little things we're saying there, it's like people can pick it up. But there's so much to learn, about what's from our own backyard, what's been here for thousands of years, hundreds of years that we've used, including the sumac, right? The sumac is a nice ingredient that I like to use a lot. It's a great substitute for like acidic citrus flavors. Absolutely. And I had the same reaction too. I didn't know. I'm like, it's growing right next to the restaurant. You've seen these weird fuzzy horn-shaped things growing by the highway.
Jurassic
You know what I mean?
Park plants.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. And I was like, okay. And I get the same reaction when I bring it up. People say, oh, I've heard of that in Middle Eastern cooking, because sumac does grow in the Middle East as well, So that's important to know that, there are a lot of indigenous ingredients to North America, but that doesn't necessarily mean they don't grow on different parts of the world. But there are some which make it more special,
That's one thing. I did a seed exchange with some people from Africa because they grow a version of white corn also. So they brought our seeds there. So the guy's supposed to give me an update this year and show me the crop.
That's so cool just to think of Mohawk corn growing on African soil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like us, like how beaten down we've been, and to see us still alive and thriving and exchanging our seeds with other people around the world. I love that because it's like, it's a big middle finger to colonialism.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And us being here, making the food that we're making at my restaurant, trying to indigenize, that's a big middle finger to colonialism. You know what I mean? Like, we're standing up, we're still here, and like I said, reclamation of everything, the land, the water, the culture.
Food sovereignty is huge.
Of course, right now, I keep hearing that word more and more in like the last year, It's
been weaponized by governments across the world.
Absolutely. To starve people, right? Exactly. Control the food supply, control the people, absolutely.
And even controlling the actual seeds and changing the construct of the actual seed that you're growing your plants, and those plants can't produce seeds so that you can
it's unnatural.
So
it's unnatural.
It's very scary. So it's really impressive to see so many young people of our generation and younger that are really on board with this whole movement.
Absolutely. And like, I everything I'm doing here is like, I want to inspire the younger people too, because I'm getting older now, what I mean? And my time is almost up. You know what I mean? It's well, no, true. Yeah. It's true. I mean, because time goes fast.
Yeah, it does.
Because time goes fast. Yeah. We're going to blink and it's going to be 10 years. Yeah. But it's the time of these younger generations that are coming up, right? And I mean, we talk about 7 generations, right? So we need to be thinking about these kids and I want to show them that there's a door for food. You know what I mean? Because I know there's kids that like to cook.
Yeah, exactly.
Girls, boys, doesn't matter, whatever, and it's like, maybe if they look and see what I'm doing, because like I said, when I started, it was hard because I was like, I don't know if I'm Mohawk enough. I don't know, what are people going to say, this and that, but it's like, I didn't have anyone to teach me or to guide me. But as Wolf Clan, my job is to be a trailblazer, right? So when I realized that, I was like, okay, let's do this. That's awesome. And it's like, and I want people to follow. I'm waiting. I mean, it's only been, a few years, but like, every day I'm almost like waiting, like I want to see something pop up on social media where it's like someone's like, I'm opening an Indigenous restaurant, or I'm, doing this and that. And like whoever does that, like if you're hearing this podcast ever, like I'm going to find you and I'm going to come and I'm going to help you any way I can.
Love
you
that.
Know what I mean? And
that's what we need to do. We need to keep lifting each other up.
And the more we some people, they get confused. Well, how can I help myself? We're helping each other.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, when you do something for somebody else, when you do something good for somebody else, how good does that feel?
The collective. Right?
Yeah. How good does it feel? Like, that's not an accident. That's like, we have that in us on purpose. You know what I mean? When an example, I don't know, like an ant is drowning in my sink, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, okay, take the ant out of the sink and save him. And it's like, you feel good about that. I mean, you should, you know what I mean? Because all life has value, you know what I mean? And,
It's really awesome to see the connections that you've made too with other Indigenous chefs. I saw you did an event with Maxim Lizat. He's from the Walaskuyet Nation out near Rivière-du-Loup. I went to his restaurant out there. So seeing you guys do collaborations together, I'm like, oh, then look at that. It's really awesome to see even other nations working together to uplift each other.
Absolutely. Well, for me, as like I do have some influences. So like I said, there was no one in the community that could help me or influence me that I knew of when I started. But I found out about Sean Sherman, so the sous chef, Owami restaurant, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Oh, nice.
And he's just put out his second cookbook.
Okay, yeah.
And I've picked up both, and they've become like my Bible because it's pre-colonial cuisine only, so no use of anything that came in boats, you know what I mean? And his second book was so much better than, the first one was great, but the second one just was bigger, and it focused on, sections, trying to show everything that was going on in Turtle Island. So he's been an influence to me, but also Chef Tanya Brandt in Aguasasne. I mean, she probably has no idea who I am, but
Aguasasne, Six Nations. Six Nations. Yeah, Six Nations.
Six Nations. Sorry,
yeah.
My fault. Yeah,
we had her down for Harvest Fest a few years ago. Yeah. She showed me juniper ash.
Well, that made me. I saw Sean Sherman first over in Minneapolis, and I'm like, oh, this guy's doing this. You know what I mean? And it seems to be going well for him, and he just won a James Beard Award when he opened. So. Then I found out about Tanya Brandt, and I was like, oh, a Mohawk, you know what I mean? Like, my own backyard, so to speak. And she's doing it, you know what I mean? And honestly, just seeing those two people, seeing those two Indigenous people where they're at, inspired me. And I was like, maybe I can do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's talking about other communities and other people. It's everything. And I haven't had the chance yet to work in any other Indigenous communities. But I would love to.
Have you seen the Instagram show called Indigilab?
No.
So check that out.
Okay.
Maybe you can be a guest on there.
Yeah,
they bring in Indigenous chefs from different communities, and you get to have a cooking show to showcase.
You have to write that down for me when I leave. I'll definitely check it out. Because I'm always on YouTube trying to find as much Indigenous stuff out there, and there's more than I guess your average person would think. Yeah. But at the same time,
find it.
It's tougher to find.
Yeah.
And but it's nice when you reading something is one thing, but when you hear it coming out of someone's mouth, you know what I mean, and it just means more. And it's you hope at least that it's accurate.
So. Like I told you a while ago, you have quite a few cheerleaders in your section, and Indigenous Tourism Quebec is a real huge advocate for you, that he's always checking in on us, Andrew, and seeing where you're at, and really hoping to see you thrive and succeed. And Fred from Montérégie Tourism also, they're really big advocates for you. So
I love both those guys, Andrew Germain, Frederick Pichette. They were like my first cheerleaders, besides my family, and they were the ones that honestly, this wouldn't be where it is without them.
I know.
Because
shout out to you guys.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I talk to them all the time. But, I did an event in Mont Saint Hilaire before the restaurant opened, and this was my first encounter with Indigenous Tourism Quebec. With Andrew Germain. And I don't remember if it was exactly him who someone from them reached out, and they said, we have this cultural center in Mont Saint Hilaire, and we want you to come and cook food for an event. And I had never cooked outside of my house, right, at that time. Well, I mean, in restaurants experience before, yes, prior, but since I started my brand, I had never cooked outside my kitchen. So it was a big deal, I was like, okay, I have to bring everything I need, you know what I mean? And it was really scary, like a lot of these jobs are very intimidating. I find like I lose sleep over it, but I take pride in the fact that I always deliver, from that first job.
Rise to the occasion.
Absolutely. And as Native people, we're very good at rising to the occasion, more so than we realize, I think.
I know. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So I went out and did this event, and I met Frederick Pichette there. I don't know if it was a joint event that they had going on, but I ran into him there, and I'll never forget, he was friendly. We introduced ourselves, but he tried the food. I believe it was the corn soup, strawberry juice, cornbread and gravy I made that time. And I saw him trying the food, and I think he was talking to Andrew Germain. He was talking about an event he had coming up, and he so aggressively said that was like, I want him, as in Rylan. He was like, he had like food in his mouth, and he was like, I want him. And like, he didn't really know that, like, I saw that exchange, that interaction, but I still think about that one moment.
Yeah.
And it was like, people like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
People are interested. People want to support. And it was like, whoa, and then like, my instinct back then was kind of like, well, who are these people? I don't really know them, like maybe they just like want some sort of representation or, and this is like my
checking the box.
Yeah.
Of thing.
Yeah. But this is like my low self-esteem talking, right? My self-fulfilling prophecy kind of stuff of like failure, of being like, they're just saying that because they're being friendly, you know what I mean? But I was in a better place by then, right? Because like I said, since 2017, I was doing better things for myself, mind, body, spirit, everything. So I was able to absorb that more. I was able to absorb that positivity, and it started to build a fire, you know what I mean? And they were like, we have so many people that want to go to Kahnawake, but there's no Kahnawake food, there's no Mohawk restaurants, And when they said that at first too, I was like, well, good luck with that, like, it's not going to be me, yeah, sure, I made you corn soup, strawberry juice, but that's as far as my knowledge really goes with that, But then again, it was like, asking myself like at night, like, why did you say that? You know what I mean? Did you really mean that? And then thinking about it, overthinking about it, which I'm really good at doing. Probably to like, maybe I can do it.
Yeah.
Maybe like, did you see how he reacted to the food? Maybe I could do it. And so again, it's the kindness of strangers, the belief that other people have in you. Like it means so much.
Yeah. That's one thing with tourism that has really opened my eyes to see how many allies we have outside of our community and who are in those spaces that we're not necessarily in, but are advocating for us, helping us to get into those spaces. So
absolutely.
I'm so appreciative.
Yeah. Allies I use the same word all the time. I mean, I went to elementary and high school outside of the community. So I grew up with all different types of people, you know what I mean? And, most of the people I grew up with, like of course there was racists. Of course I got into a fight or two over being called a savage.
Yeah.
Of course I had to stand up for myself, but most people were interested and cool. And now all those people are grown up now, right? And of course racism still exists. I think it always will, but to certain degrees. And a lot more people now are, I don't want to use the word woke, but just like they're more conscious of these things. And maybe more of the, maybe the people that I went to high school were like, well, I remember going to school with, Rylan, and like he was a really nice guy, like he was a really good person, and maybe it made them interested, So allies means so much. Absolutely. Like we're not going to do this by ourselves.
No,
we're not. I'm sorry. We don't have the resources. We don't have the people in place, like you said, to get where we need to get on our own. We need to work together, like we wanted to do from day one with the two-row wampum, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So allies means so much, and it wasn't so surprising to me that there were people on the outside helping. It was just surprising to me that people were helping at all with me. You know what I mean? That was like, I'm not good at asking for help. You know what I mean? And when people do help me, I'm always like, well, before I was like, well, what do they want out of it? Like, is it for their ego? Is it for money? And these people that I've met, Andrew Germain, Frederick Bichette, many other people on the outside, that's not their goal at all.
No.
They literally just want to help get the representation out there and spread the word, and that means a lot again.
And they see the value in it as being authentic to their own experiences on their territories where they're staying, because Fred will always say, I can't have my tourism if it wasn't for these territories that are your ancestral territories. So it's that acknowledgement that makes the relationship with the visitors on this land a working relationship.
Absolutely. Well, what comes to mind right away now is it's maple season, right? So Quebec, right? Quebec they've got a monopoly on maple syrup, right? And they've completely stolen that from us, right? So when tourists from around the world want to come to Quebec, like, oh, let's go in the spring and get the Sugar Shack experience, you know what I mean? And they're just recreating what they learned from us, you know what I mean? And it's like, something needs to be done about that. You know what I mean? It's like the stranglehold they have on that market. It shouldn't be that way. You know what I mean? Like no one, it shouldn't be like that for anybody, not even us. You know what I mean? But if anyone has hands in it, it should be us. You know what I mean? Native American people. And that being said, I have met people who, this girl, she was like, my father, he makes maple syrup, and he told me my whole life that he learned it, that his grandfather learned it, or maybe great grandfather. Either way, his ancestors learned it from Native Americans. Yeah. And she is an ally to this day. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I bet her father is, and I bet, so there are people out there that, and again, it's
giving the acknowledgement.
Exactly. You know what I mean? It's not maple syrup is not a Quebecois thing. No. It's not a Canadian thing, and it never will be. So acknowledge where it came from. Acknowledge the people that showed you how to make it, what it was, where to find it, right? And that's it. You know what I mean? We're not, you don't have to give us money. We're not asking for a cut, right? It's just acknowledge that this is an Indigenous product. Exactly. You know what I mean? And if you're coming here, you're experiencing something Indigenous, not something Quebecois, not something Canadian, so it's definitely important.
And that was something actually that was really concerning that just came out in our news this week was the maple forest that's next to our high school has such high levels of lead.
Well, we all know why, right? Yeah. Well, we know why here in the community because of the trash next door, right?
Exactly.
And I mean, this is age old for the reservation, right? Let's put that big heaping trash pile right next to it. Let's put a seaway in. Let's put train tracks in. Let's put a bridge in. You know what I mean? So it's like, and not to mention, it's a quarry we live on, rock, right? Yeah. And here we still are.
Exactly.
Here we still are. You know what I mean? And, obviously in 1990, they probably regretted putting the bridge where they put it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, even now to this day, you know what I mean? It's like, you put this all on our land, you know what I mean? And if we want to shut it down, we'll shut it down, so maybe that wasn't the best idea to start with.
Yeah, but that's where people that come to visit and connect with us, they see these huge ships coming through our community. They see this traffic coming through our community. They see all this stuff. And it makes them take that time to reflect that environmental racism is a real thing and that we're living this every day of our lives. And it makes them be empathetic to when we're saying land back. We're not just saying it because we're trying to be greedy and take all the land.
We want to heal the land.
We want to have healthy land for our future generations. For
everybody.
Exactly.
And not just Native people.
No, and that's the takeaway that a lot of people leave with the community is hearing that we're all in this together. We have to make sure that we ensure that we have something to leave for the future generations.
All these people fighting for the forests, fighting for clean water, and it's like, I guess non-natives look at that and they're like, oh, what's going on there? But they don't realize that these natives are standing up for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, get behind them. You know what I mean? And like, we live in Canada, it's got the most fresh water out of anywhere in the world, And I'm not a doom and gloom guy, but I tell my kids all the time, like, drink water, it's good for you. And I'm like, you never know what's going to happen with this water. You know what I mean? So you're lucky enough to live where you have clean water. Make sure you are thankful for that every day. You know what I mean? And water is life. You know what I mean? Let's not forget that. Food is life, water is life. These things are essential for everybody.
It's something where tourism connects with bringing the people here. Tourism is able to connect them with your type of food experience, and everybody walks away with a positive and
feeling good.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that when I can see that when people are smiling at the restaurant and they're leaving, and it was their first time in a native territory. It was their first time in Kahnawake. It was their first time whatever, and but it's more than just the food, though, right? It's the interaction that I have with them.
Exactly.
And again, it's like maybe I'm the first or the only Native person that they've ever met or they're ever going to meet. And it's important that I'm a good ambassador, you know what I mean? And that can be a little nerve-wracking too, but what I've found is that if I just go and I just be myself, that's usually enough.
Authenticity,
and like, I like to be like, up forward and honest about, upfront and honest about things too. And it's like, I find like, when you're like that right away, other people are like that right away. And it's like, and that barrier goes down, you know what I mean? And it's like, and then it's like, you just feel like
people are real.
Yeah. And you just feel like you're hanging out with a friend, you know what I mean? And like, I love doing that.
Whenever we have people that come into the Welcome Center and we send them on their way to do their experience and then recommend to finish their day off at your place, and then we see the pictures the next day. I'm like, yay, they made it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I always know. I'm like, I always ask. We get people from different parts of the world all the time. They come in and like they can barely speak English, and I'm like, where are you from? And like, how did you find us? And it's usually, we went to the tourism office and they sent us here. And I'm like, all right, good.
Yeah.
Sent you to the right place.
Send them to the good stuff. Yeah. So what has been the craziest moment for you since you started this whole venture?
What do you mean craziest?
Like just the most over the top, like you never would have expected.
Oh, definitely the Bell Center.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I was joking with my girlfriend, telling her I was like, they ever make a documentary about my life? I'm like, the Bell Center job has to be like a big part of it because it was surreal, and it was only like after, and it was like, I went there initially to meet one of the chefs, Rob Bowe, the chef de cuisine there. And he was just giving me like my introduction of where I was going to be, you know what I mean? And we were hanging out, and he's like most kitchen people, super cool. We got along right from the get-go. He was showing me this, showing me that, and he was like, oh, you want to see the bowl? And I was like, right over my head, I was like, okay, sure, I want to see the bowl. No idea what he's talking about. He meant the rink and everything.
Yeah.
And we went, down to the ice there, and it was the first time I've ever been in the Bell Center where it was empty.
Oh, so cool.
But the energy in that place,
yeah,
even when there's nobody in there, it was like I never experienced anything like that, and me and him had this really like heart-to-heart conversation right there, like right by the ice. And cool. It was only afterwards, like when I got home, and I was like, did that really just happen? And I'm like, that's crazy, And then that night when we did the service was great. I can't say enough good things about the kitchen staff there and everybody that I worked with, all the way from the big chef Eve all the way down. Everyone was super kind, courteous, helpful. Even the cashiers we had working for us were so great, you know what I mean? And I was able to interact with the customers, native and non-native, local, non-local, whatever. Everyone seemed to love the food, and it came out great. And then, they were like, oh, you're going to get to watch the third period from upstairs.
Oh, nice.
And again, I'm like, like upstairs. So I'm like, what does that mean? And they meant like the press box, you know what I mean?
That's so cool.
So I got like taken by one of the security guards out for the third period and led me through this big maze and all these
VIP.
Yeah, for real, it was cool. And then we went to an elevator, and I remember the elevator opened, right? And what's the mascot's name?
UP
was inside there. And he was in character. It was so weird. Like the doors opened, and he had his eyes covered, and he was standing there, and he opened, and he was like, he didn't say anything, but he was like, hello. And he walked out, and the security guard had no reaction at all. And I was like, I looked at her like, well, that's kind of weird, right? And she's like, oh yeah, that does happen back here. But she led me all the way upstairs, and like, I could feel like we were going up, higher and higher, and she was leading me down this like long carpeted hallway that looked like what you used to like get on an airplane.
Okay, yeah.
And that actually like says something, because it was like I was reaching new heights, you could say. And she was like, I hope you don't have vertigo. And I was like, what do you mean? And I'm still like oblivious to where we were. And then like all of a sudden we're up in the press box, you know what I mean? And I was like, whoa, and led me to my seat, and then I just got to sit there alone for a little while and like absorb it there. That's amazing. Take a few pictures, send it to my kids, send it to my mom and dad. And I was like, wow, you know what I mean? And like, again, it was just like, those days, those weeks that are hard, those months that are hard where, I'm like, is this worth it? Am I going to, maybe I should do something else. Maybe I should give up. And like those moments make it worth it. And it's like, you realize like, this is how it's paying off. You know what I mean? And again, to be like, I know they've had they have pop-up restaurants monthly there, but I believe we're the first Indigenous one, and the first one from Kahnawake.
Yeah.
And again, like, to be first and all that is very cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool. But what's more to come?
Exactly.
What's going to come next? Like, who else can they get in there? You know what I mean? But that requires local chefs willing to step up and take a chance and be willing to do the work and the time and the effort and sacrifice to help put our food back on the map.
And I've seen you do workshops where you're teaching people how to cook also. Do you have plans to pursue that in the future?
Absolutely. The cooking classes are actually my favorite aspect.
Yeah.
Like when we talk about private events, catering, the storefront classes, that's my favorite because the interaction I get to have with people. And it's so it's not like how to cook. It's like, you need to have some knowledge of that. It's more how to cook with indigenous ingredients, how to cook with Turtle Island ingredients, Kanyake Haga ingredients, right? Depending on what it is. And I didn't have as much time as I would have liked to do that, you know what I mean, with running the storefront. But it's definitely something I'm interested to do more of in the future. And I mean, at any time, anyone can reach out to me via email or whatever to set those kind of appointments up. You know, we are closed until June, so I'm taking a break. I'm not doing it. I'm saying no for a little while. I'm saying no, to let myself recharge, reset. But people can reach out about that, and I can fit up to 12 people at a time.
Awesome.
And again, like that's where the passion really shines through. My personality really shines through because I'm talking about ingredients that I love and care about, and dishes I love and care about, and a cuisine that I love and care about, and I'm teaching it to people who are there because they want to know more about it. So it's like the perfect storm of things coming together, and talking about those things are extremely rewarding too. And like I said, educating before I'm an educator. I need to teach people, like, if one non-native person can come to the restaurant out of 10 and remember how to make cornbread and take it home and make cornbread for the rest of his life for his family, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because, here we all are in Kahnawake, we're making Italian food, we're making Mexican food, this and that, but it's like, why are we making Mohawk food, right? And we're Mohawk, you know what I mean?
We gotta get that.
That's that disconnect, and it's not just learning too, but it's like people gotta it's a choice, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's a choice that will benefit your health more than anything. If you start eating more of these traditional ingredients, learning what they are, and like incorporating them into your daily diet. And it's not French fries, it's not poutine, and those things are great, you know what I mean? And I love those things and I eat them, but it just like more of an effort. Yeah. You know what I mean? More of an effort, and not just at home either, but like supporting other indigenous chefs, indigenous restaurants. Like, we need that, you know what I mean? And like, I'm so proud of the fact that I can say, I own a Mohawk restaurant on Mohawk land, and we have a Mohawk staff, because how many other restaurants can say that, know? And to be honest, it's not as hard as some people make it out to seem. If you get the right team together, you treat them right, you provide a healthy work environment, provide adequate money, you can have a really great group, and
awesome. So with all of that sharing in your workshops, do you have a specific dish that you would say represents you, that it's your favorite dish to prepare and see people's reactions eating it?
I've got a few. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is corn soup. Yeah. I didn't like corn soup as a kid. No. And I think my mom made it occasionally, or you would get it from like a family gathering somewhere. You know what I mean? And for me, it was like a bunch of vegetables, as a kid, and I was like, that's not my favorite thing, But it was one of the first dishes I started to make because it was one of the first local dishes that I knew existed, right? I love making that. I don't know what it is. Maybe it is. It's doing what my ancestors did 1,000 years ago. You know what I mean? And there's something super empowering about that, and when I'm making it, I'm thinking of those things. I'm thinking about how great these ingredients are, you know what I mean? And for me, I replaced, like I grew up with turnip. It was usually turnip in there, but I replaced the turnip with squash. Yeah. So you've got your corned beans and squash all in there, and it could be almost called a Three Sisters soup at the same time. But either way, people seem to love it. And, it's like, it's predominantly indigenous ingredients, other than the green cabbage and the orange carrots, but people love it. And that being said, there's dishes that I'm working on that I've done for these private events that I'm still evolving. Yeah. And there's one in mind in particular. It's like pre-colonial ingredients only. It's a squash dish, but I don't want to give out too much information on it. It's probably something I'm going to have on the menu when we reopen in June as an example of something that's made exclusively with Kanyake Haga ingredients, something that could be made year round. and something that's delicious.
Oh, that's exciting.
So,
I'm excited for June. With different groups in the community that are working with food sovereignty, like Indigenous, for example, do you see any type of collaborations coming in the future of trying to implement the things that are grown in the community garden into your
Absolutely.
menu? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, since we opened the restaurant, collaborating with locals is a priority for me, right? Unfortunately, we did downsize last summer, and I kind of had to cut a lot of those out financially, which is just it is what it is. So, but we at one point we were carrying like I think 5 other local products as well as ours.
Nice.
Almost like like a department store of Mohawk things.
A co-op.
Exactly. And again, the whole community aspect of it, you know what I mean? And I'm still open to any kind of collaborations that'll come down the line, absolutely, especially with locals. And I've got a long way to go on this journey. It's really just starting. So
well, for any of the youth that are out there, anybody even that are restarting in their career and maybe feel like this is something that they would want to do, what would you have to tell them as advice on how to start this journey?
Oof, a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of things. It's like first foremost, like you have to be ready and willing to work hard and like you might have an idea of what working hard is, right? Everyone has an idea of what it is, right? And but this job has pushed me beyond anything I thought I was capable of. So that's a good thing.
That's
you know what I mean?
Amazing.
Yeah. But you have to be, to start off, like don't do it for, if you're doing it for money too, that's, sorry, you're doing it for the wrong reason, But I would say do it. I would say take whatever chance you want to take. There's so many things in Kahnawake that can give people legs up. Entrepreneurs, restaurants, that can get legs up. So reach out, talk to people, work hard, have pride in what you do, whatever it is, whatever kind of food it is that you want to make, whatever kind of lane, like be thankful that you're able to do this now, because we were almost wiped off the earth, right? So it's a privilege to be able to do it. You know what I mean? So it's a privilege for me to serve the community. Yeah. It's a privilege to be able to come up with these new dishes or use old dishes. So work hard, say yes to things when things seem too big or out of your reach. Just try as hard as you can, and things will go in a good way. The more you say yes, the more you work hard, the more benefits there will be, and it's important to find your place in the community, and if you think how massive our nation used to be, right? There must have been, groups, teams of people that were cooking. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a huge part of our culture, you know what I mean? And don't even get me started on, sexism and like people being like, oh, women only cook, you know what I mean? Like, that's offensive, you know what I mean? Like we all cook, you know what I mean? Man or woman, doesn't matter, what you have between your legs. It's whatever your sexual preference, that's irrelevant. Like, the nation needs to eat. The nation needs to be fed. The nation needs to be nourished in a proper, healthy way, and we're only going to get there together. I'm not going to do that on my own. Me and you together, we're not going to do it. The more people we have, the more of a chance we have of reaching the finish line, reaching our goal.
Stronger together.
Absolutely.
That's one thing that we're doing with our tourism with the Haudenosaunee Network, is really supporting our sister communities and trying to all get on the same page so that we all uplift each other together. And we're baby steps, but we're getting there.
Yes, exactly.
And it's just really exciting to be able to celebrate all the success stories that we hear, and the young and up and coming people are the ones that I'm really have my fingers crossed and have faith in that they're really going to be that change that we need.
Well, we have kids. We will have kids, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So your kids join you in the kitchen?
Dishes.
Nice,
dishes.
Nice.
Absolutely. No, they've been in there. Like they're they're on dishes, but it's a great way to just learn and see how the kitchen works and all that. You know what I mean? And that being said, like, I never push anything on my kids.
Yeah.
I only push what they're interested in. I push that on them. But my son's taken a little bit more of a liking to cooking. I'm seeing him like making a lot of like egg dishes, you know, for various forms of eggs. Yeah. And that's a great starting place. And that's where I started. Was eggs in a pan. Yeah. You know. And I see him, you know, I don't think he knows that I'm seeing him, but I'm seeing him, and like just seeing him the other night, like trying to like make himself stuff. It was like he's learning from me, you know. He does his mise en place. He's like, okay, I have everything ready to go. So when I start cooking, you know, he like forgot to put the toast on. You could tell he was like kicking himself in the butt. Like, oh, I didn't time the toast properly with the eggs. Now I got to wait for the toast. The eggs are getting cold. I'm like, hey, you only learn from making mistakes. You know what I mean? But I am also so hopeful for the future, and honestly, when I look at a lot of these kids, my kids, other kids, they give me hope because maybe it really is like our generation that is like starting to make the change, right? But these younger generations are the ones that are going to like run with it, right? You know what I mean? And I guess because it's important to us, we don't realize how much we're presenting it to our own children. And that's what they're growing up seeing us talk about. The culture is important. The language is important. The food is important. Yeah. Right? So they're more likely to do that. Again, too, just like overall as a community, you know what I mean? Like I spent a lot of years, you know, feeling very negative about the community, negative about myself first and foremost, right? And that's where it came from. There's hope anywhere, you know. There's good and bad people everywhere. There's, you know what I mean? And ever since I've been on this food journey and this healing journey, I've come into contact with so many more good people, you know, and it's my faith has been restored, so to speak, in Kahnawake in the last few years, you know what I mean? Because I see how many people are trying, you know what I mean, and how many people are not, you know what I mean? And it's usually the people that are not trying that are the most upset about everything and unhappy, you know what I mean? We can all indigenize our lives in many ways other than just food, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just a matter of like putting it into practice, actually doing it, you know what I mean? Not just thinking about it or saying you're going to do it, but actually doing it, you know, and sticking with it and staying loyal to that and having conviction and integrity.
That's one thing that when I talk with the youth, when we did our youth leadership program last year, and when I talk to them at Let's Talk Tourism pop-ups, I'm always trying to make them see that they can find something that they're passionate about and turn that into their livelihood
and indigenize it.
Exactly.
You know, absolutely. So like an example is like my son, you know, he's only 15. He doesn't know what he really wants to do, you know, but he's thrown out a few things, and he's a big time wrestler, right? He almost made the Canadian team. He's striving to make the Canadian junior team right now, but he was like, you know, maybe I want to do like a wrestling clothes outfit and singlets and whatever. And I was like, great. How can you indigenize that? Yeah. You know what I mean? Or how can you take all the experience that you've learned in wrestling and give back to the community? You know, exactly. or you know, they both done a lot of judo. It's like, how can, you know, does Kahnawake have a judo club?
Bring it back.
No, you know, we have a wrestling club, which is great. You know what I mean? And again, that's a step in the right direction. But again, it's exactly, find something you're passionate about, and that's what I did. I was like, food. I like creating. And then it's like I learned how to indigenize it, and it became so much more rewarding. It became so much more than just a job. You know what I mean? If I was out there making spaghetti every day, you know, I would enjoy that. But it's like that's not where I come from. That's not my people's stuff, and that makes it more precious, and it puts much more on the line. And it's like it becomes like very personal and like almost intimate. I would say. Yeah.
Well, that's something across Canada, right? They're having a big problem with their farmers, with their soil. They're not able to produce crops on it. So we're getting a lot of government people coming to the community to ask us about food and how we grew our crops and how we maintain that quality of the soil.
Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions, right? But look at that, right? You know what I mean? And I think that's an example of, you know, when you hear people say, and I don't mean this in a negative or aggressive way, but, you know, natives were here before, during, and we're going to be here after, because we understand those things. We understand that you can't crap where you eat, right? And you need to take care of the land. You need to, we are the stewards of the land, right?
Exactly.
We tend to the land, and then the land gives us whatever we need.
Exactly.
To us, it seems so black and white and simple, right? But to people on the outside, not so much, right? To people that have money as their most important thing in their life, that's all they really care about is profits, right? And what it really comes down to is themselves, right? How can I make money to support my family? I'm only going to be alive for a few years, life is so finite, right? And it's just like, well, I may as well just, take care of myself and all that. And, you hear a lot of people like, you got to take care of yourself first and foremost, or you can't take care of anyone else. And I agree with that to a certain extent, but then you have people like me where it's like, when I do things for myself, it doesn't really do anything. It's when I do things for other people. And I feel, again, that's a characteristic that we have, I think, as Native people.
Yeah, the acts of service.
Exactly, acts of service. And again, that rewarding feeling you get when you do something good for somebody else for no reason other than wanting to help them.
Yeah.
It's
something that I'm happy that they're making that connection, to see that we have a lot of knowledge to share.
Absolutely.
Even when you were talking about the soup, those 3 ingredients, the corn, bean, and squash, I only recently learned that if you eat them together, it forms a perfect protein.
Yeah.
I was like, so impressive.
You could live off corn, beans, and squash, and not only live, but you would have no deficiencies. So like in other parts of the world, bread might be everything.
Yeah.
Bread and wine or things like that.
Or
those
rice,
things you can live off, but eventually you'll become like anemic, you know what I mean? And again, this is something that our people knew for so long, you know what I mean? And it was so precious. But of course we have so much knowledge to share with them, which we tried from the start, you know what I mean? But they didn't want to listen. You know what I mean? And now they have to come back to us and say, hey, maybe you were right. Can you show us how to do this, please? And is that not what we've been doing since day one, is showing them how to do things? But like children, they don't always listen, right? Or they don't want to listen, or they need to be told many times, or they need to be told, or they need to make the mistake over and over again until they learn. You know what I mean? And meanwhile, there's a solution here, but you just don't want to hear it because it doesn't put as much money in your pocket, and
even going out west, I went to visit the buffalo, and that was an interesting thing that they've realized now, that taking away this animal from the ecosystem has had devastating effects on the soil.
Absolutely.
Because they were nature's plow with their hoofs.
Well, it's the same thing like us. Like they've tried to erase us from the land, and look what's happened to the land in the meantime.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, it's clear to us, but we need to make it clear to them, and then like even when Europeans land here, and they've wolves, right? Wolves, like in Europe, it's like the worst thing that could exist, right? So let's kill all the wolves, and then everything will be good, And again, that's an immature way to think about things, and it's a very it's short-sighted, and it's always, when these problems come up in the end, it's just like, well, what did, you can't just upset the whole balance of things, you know what I mean? Like nature has spent its entire existence becoming what it is for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? So
everything has its place.
Absolutely, including us as Native people, right? So, yeah.
That's where when I explain to people about the pyramid, that European society puts man on the top and the pyramid is everybody else underneath, and I'm like, no, it's a circle. We need to be together all in this circle to be successful as beings on this planet.
Absolutely. Well, let's not underestimate the wisdom of our own people, right? Because they were wise enough to realize that as humans we had these innate desires maybe to be selfish or to think a certain way. And it was like our people were like, we're going to go beyond that. We're going to go beyond the way we were programmed to be, and we're going to reach something higher where we can live in balance with each other and the land, right? And that's incredible, right? And then again, that takes dedication, that takes consciousness. You need to be aware of your own feelings, your own reactions, and your own predispositions. And I just think that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like we were born this way, but we can be better. We don't have to be
Exactly.
that way. We're in control of our own lives,
It's all
and
about that choice.
we've been given that mind that we have for a reason, right? And yeah.
Well, it's awesome to see you trailblazing for this in the community and being an inspiration to people that you work with, to people who visit the community, and to especially us at tourism, to see you in these spaces doing these amazing things where you're putting us on the map and you're bringing that awareness that a lot of people don't realize that we're still here. So it's really, really awesome what you're doing. And I'm excited to see what you're going to do in the future and the more collaborations that we can have with you. I'm all open for all of the opportunities that we're going to be able to have together. So Nyawakoa for joining us. And if you have any final words.
I do want to say something about how you just said, putting us on the map and making people realize that we're here. I think a lot of people in town, especially people that have been born and raised here and, never really spent significant time outside the community. I don't think you understand how little people know about us on the outside, right? And that they don't have to know about us, right? They don't have a responsibility that says they need to know about us. So when I was at the Bell Center a few weeks ago, I'm talking to the chef guy there, and he's like, what is Ganawage? He works 15 minutes from Ganawage, right? He knows every surrounding area of Montreal, and he doesn't even stop to think in his mind, like, wait, what's on the South Shore? Like, I guess Chateauguay, Saint-Constant, you know what I mean? And I was like, we've been here for like 300 years.
Right.
And like, I intentionally bring that up to people, and I'm like, how do you not know?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That we're right here. So that's an example of what I mean. And it's like, people need to know that, like, if you want people on the outside to learn, you have to teach them.
Exactly.
And there's not many of us population-wise compared to them. And, in their mind, they don't owe us anything, and, they probably don't. But it's like, don't ever be shocked when people don't know what Ganawage is, or don't know what being Mohawk is, or, or the language we speak here, or anything like that. It's like, if you want them to learn, then teach them. If you don't want them to learn, then don't teach them. That's fine too.
Exactly.
But don't be surprised when people on the outside have no idea, because we're much smaller than we think we are. And but that being said, we're fastest growing population in Canada, right? And like I said, we're here now. We're growing. We're taking everything back.
And that's one thing that even though we are a small community, we do big things.
Absolutely, we're Mohawks, right? We fight fiercely for what's ours, right? And we fight for our people, and let's not forget that we're all born warriors, and we all have a responsibility to protect the nation, to stand up for the nation, and to help the pine tree grow. Yeah.
Perfect ending to this. So Nyawakoa, thank you for joining us for this episode, and we'll catch you next time.
Nyawakoa.
The views and opinions of the guests expressed in this podcast do not reflect those of Iorì and its employees.